With the Flash in developmental hell for nearly a decade, and with the box office bombing, should it have stayed there?
I could save people. I could save my mom. I could save your parents.
You could also destroy everything.
Love you, Mom. I love you too.
Now, I'm a pretty big fan of The Flash, superheroes in general. I don't know if I've actually talked about a superhero film yet on here, but that's what I'm really into. Actually, you actually probably see I have a Flash poster right on my wall over there. It's Wally West. Read quite a few comic books, especially like Justice League, stuff like that. And then yeah, especially when it comes to movies, TV shows, I've seen a lot with this character in it. So this was something that I've been waiting for a while. My older brother, this is his favorite character of all time, is Wally West Flash, is the Flash in general. So especially from him, from osmosis, there's been a lot of passed down knowledge and information and stuff like that. Along with all that, this movie is an adaptation of the Flashpoint Paradox, which is a comic book story that I love a lot. The animated film is very close to it, really good. If you don't want to read the comic book, go watch the animated film. And its storyline has been adapted from the CW TV show for The Flash. Flashpoint Paradox, great story, and it's something that inside the comic books, when Flash fixed everything, he actually did reset the universe and caused the New 52. And so that was the type of idea that DC had with using it for the film, is, have it reset the whole DCU, even though it's not the official title for it. So this movie, it's been buzzed for about 10 years. We have the Flash TV show, just everything around it being one of the biggest Flash storylines and one of the biggest, Justice League storylines, because it resets everything. This movie had a lot riding on it. Not only that, it's been, we've known about this for over a decade, but we know that it's been the Flashpoint pretty much since, 2020, 2019, the last 3 years. We knew it was supposed to be coming out. Michael Keaton was supposed to be here. It was gonna be this multiverse-widening storyline, but we've been inside an era of multiverse. Well, we'll get into this. Point is, there's a lot of stuff that's been anticipating with the Flash, and we really do need to see if it holds up, especially because nobody's seeing it right now. So let's get into the positives.
So how was it this week? How's school?
School was good. Oh,
This is mad trippy. Dude, this is catastrophic.
Starting off in the positives, I think Ezra Miller does a good job in this. Now, this might be controversial to some people to say. I'm not sure. There's been a lot of bad stuff that Ezra Miller's done in the last few years. And it's no surprise to anybody. Even he's not even allowed to be in a lot of the press tours or any of the press conferences because of this. And so, if anybody knows my channel, if American Beauty and such, anybody knows anything about me, I love American Beauty. It's my favorite movie. So, along with The Flash, I'm pretty used to separating the main actor from the project they're working in. I don't have an issue separating people with the work. It's something that maybe it's an issue for some people. It's just not for me. I can do it. Ezra Miller does a good job. I think that he has to carry this movie a lot, just performing by himself, back to back. In a lot of scenes, you'll see two of him together, and I think he plays it off very well. For a lot of these scenes, Ezra Miller is just in the same shot with himself, and he's playing off himself, and it really works. He does a really good job. It reminds me a lot of how Matthew Willard really made it believable that he was talking to a dog that wasn't there in the Scooby-Doo movies. Same thing. Ezra Miller does a really good job here. I don't doubt it for a second. I think that's something that should be praised. I like the fact that this Barry is a more mature version. Maybe we didn't get to see him evolved, as I heard some other people say, but that's not the point. I understand that I didn't even see it as a more mature version of Barry. I just saw that this was the regular Barry, and then I went back in time and met a more immature version of himself. And I thought that really worked. Make it into where you made Ezra Miller the comedic relief, if you want to call him that. But that type of guy, that type of character inside Justice League and everything, to make him now the straight man, it was a smart decision. It's something that I guess, you see it sometimes in, Peacemaker or stuff like that. You see he's a straight man in some scenes. And so, yeah, that type of stuff, it works. I enjoyed it. And that goes on to the fact that the straight man comedy, Ezra Miller doing a lot of these jokes, I thought the jokes in this movie worked. Not all of them were great. Not all of them were just amazing hits. But I thought even a lot of, the more Marvel, goofy kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, I thought it worked better in this film. And maybe it's because it is the Flash and it is the more convenient character for the Justice League in the Zack Snyder universe. but it worked. There's a scene when he goes to try to run, when Prime Barry, you know, the one that we know from the beginning of the movie, that when he travels back in time, he loses his powers, and the young, immature Barry ends up getting them. And so the Prime Barry goes to try to run to, you know, activate his powers, and nothing happens. And that's a really funny scene. You got his rubber from his shoes squeaking against the floor. He's doing the whole goofy Flash pose, like starting to run up. It was like stuff like that. I like those type of jokes, and I thought they worked well in this movie. Another thing I really enjoy, which I know Michael Shannon didn't, because he says so in his you know, post movie interviews and stuff, was that I like the fact they brought in Zod. This whole Man of Steel subplot of Zod coming to Earth, needing to steal the Kryptonians' DNA to terraform Earth into Krypton. Great stuff. I really enjoyed it. I really like the fact that this feels like something that DC comic books would do in their actual comic book storylines, where you have someone like Jeff Johns would go back to the 80s, grab some random storylines, some random MacGuffin, a random villain, throw them into the modern storyline, and retcon it, and make it to where it fits perfectly. I think that was a really good job. This was something that feels like DC would do. Go and take something and retcon it, and then, like, make it fit. And it made, and especially because they didn't do the whole, in Flashpoint, a big positive about the storyline is that you don't need a villain for it, and I'll get to this later on too. You don't need a villain for the Flashpoint because the villain is Barry. Barry made a mistake going back in time. He now needs to fix it. It's like, you know, Biff is a villain in Back to the Future, but the whole thing is we have, like, there's a timeline. I have to get back in time before everything bad happens. Something you get from Avatar: The Last Airbender. You can have a new threat every episode. You can have a villain of the week. None of that matters because the whole overlining threat is we need to defeat the Fire Lord. And so when you have this overarching threat, this overarching clock, it really holds your story together really well. It doesn't matter how many villains you have, it can really hold it really well. And Flashpoint has this because in the storyline for the comic book, it's Themyscira and Atlantis. They're going at war, and their war is going to blow up Earth. Like, it's not like Barry has to fix this before this war gets out of control. Inside this movie, same thing. It's Zod doing a war with humans and pretty much Earth, and then Zod's gonna win and terraform it. There is no Superman to stop him, and Zod will win if Barry doesn't go back in time and fix his own mistake. So this is a really cool Zod coming back in here. You needed a world-ending threat. You needed something that was going to be like a clock on this world. And if you weren't going to have the Justice League going to come in, you weren't going to have Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa, you know, fight each other and have this whole war. I get it. This was a good way to do it. And I like seeing Michael Shannon come back. I like this whole, you know, I like the subplot. I thought they did a good job here.
This world must die.
Moving on to the mixed aspects of this film, there are quite a few. This is a film that's quite enjoyable, but it has its slip-ups, has its problems. One, I would say that Batman, the Michael Keaton one, he's good. A little underutilized, and that's something that goes along with Supergirl as well. But I feel like here, they could have done more with him. There should have been more of a overarching subplot with Batman. That's why it's saying that, like, when you have it inside the original Flashpoint storyline, because it's Batman's dad.
Started territory. Batman, what do we do?
We try not to die.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Let's go.
And his son comes back, and so that's the whole reason why Thomas helps Barry. And all Thomas has to do to complete a storyline or complete his character arc is get Barry as help Barry, which it does inside the original storyline. Here, it's not, you know, it's supposed to be Batman, it's supposed to be Bruce Wayne, but it's supposed to be not the 1989 version, but it is, you know, it's an Elseworld version, but it's basically him, like 99% him. And it's just a little underdeveloped. I really wish that we could have seen something where, you know, he's upset about the death of Catwoman, maybe from Batman Forever or something like that. I don't know, like something. Like, it just felt like at the end of the movie, he helps Barry, he gets along, he does it, and then he dies. And that goes for Supergirl too. Supergirl comes in, helps Barry, doesn't have an arc, and dies. And I think they're good side characters. I enjoy. This is both Batman and Supergirl. Both of them have their same issues. They both have They both have a little bit of personality. I understand them a bit. Batman gets some cool moments with his tech. It gets a nice, like, you know, but it's not enough because there's no character arcs for them. There's nothing that goes along with them. Cyborg and even the Flashpoint storyline. He doesn't have like the biggest stuff. He's a big side character that helps them do a lot of stuff. Doesn't have the biggest character arc, but in the beginning of the story, he is a diehard loyalist to the government, and by the end of the story, he's not, because he sees how bad the government was and everything. And like just like in this movie, how the Russian government has Supergirl captured, the American government has Superman captured in the original storyline. So it's just they didn't give him enough. They gave him enough to do, like, within the story, but not enough emotional stuff to do. And that's what really resonates with the characters. Like, this is basic filmmaking 101, basic storytelling 101. I shouldn't have to explain this to really anybody. Make us care about the characters. So I really do wish that, even though they gave him stuff to do, they gave us stuff to make him connect. That's what I really wish. And going along with that, I really don't see how they would have been able to make a Supergirl solo film, which is what they gave us here. Especially if Batman was going to be the person mentoring her, or whatever it was going to be before they scrapped it. I just don't understand, because there just wasn't enough in this movie, and maybe there was in the original cut, but not here. I mean, really, especially when it came to Supergirl, you were already setting up that young Barry is kind of having, like, a flirting relationship with her, and that's why at the end of the movie, he is the one that's like, no, I'm gonna save her. It's almost like he was, like, trying to have feelings for her, but other than, like, maybe a glance, like a smile that they have, they barely even communicate to each other, barely even talk. So it really makes you think, like, why were they setting that up? I guess is to make it to seem so Barry's so emotional by the end of the film, but really, again, it's like you have these characters, it seems like you have these subplots, why not divulge into them? Why are you just making it to where Supergirl fights Zod and that's it, that's all she does? Now, maybe the most controversial thing to put in the mixed category and not the negative category is the CGI. I know a lot of people hate this CGI. I agree, there's a lot of points in this movie where, like, we all know that baby scene, that opening scene with the babies. Wow, like, all those babies dead with shaking baby syndrome. I don't care, that infant room just exploded, them falling out of an exploding building, those brains are rattled. Next, I know the Flash isn't physically moving them, but like throwing stuff, all of them getting like caught mid-air, like spinning, like it's just getting thrown into a microwave or like getting popped out of a microwave. Those babies, those brains are rattled. They're little mush in there. There's baby food up in that skull. So, good job being a hero, but, it didn't really work out. Not only that, though, all those babies looked horrible. They just looked horrible. I don't know why that was something that they thought was good. I mean, honestly, you might have done better doing the American Sniper, like, baby doll with just the crying noises, because those were so distracting to look at when they first came down. But the Speed Force, I didn't mind it. I didn't really mind when they were in the Speed Force and we saw the whole janky, like, Nick Cage, Superman, and all those cameos. I didn't mind it. That stuff it just looked fine. I know Andy Muschietti is how you pronounce his name. I know he says that, like, the CGI was deliberate. It was supposed to make it look like how you're supposed to see stuff in the Speed Force. I don't believe that, but no matter what, the Speed Force stuff, it was fine. I mean, it was better CGI than Quantumanium. I don't know why all these recent superhero films get horrible CGI, but it was still better CGI than Quantumanium, so I'm going to give them that. And it still looked more believable, and, the powers were shown better than they were in Quantumanium. I know it's not, like, Paul Rudd's fault, but when you go into, like, big Ant-Man and you're inside this big, vast, like, world, it doesn't look like he's super big. It just looks like he's a normal guy walking in a normal world. At least this one, I think Barry's moving fast. I see he's in the Speed Force. I didn't mind the Speed Force effects. Some of the babies, some of the special effects, like when it just came to their faces, yeah, like that was weird. I don't even know if, like, honestly, I never even really knew if Michael Shannon was really there, because he was always wearing that, like, the Kryptonian suit. Same thing with the other girl, like, because we've got that warrior girl that fights in Man of Steel, that Kryptonian warrior girl. She was also there, but also only ever wearing the suit, and so it was like, I couldn't really tell if they were actually there. Say they were watching No Way Home, like, something like Lizard and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you can just kind of use CGIs, and maybe that's what they're doing.
I will help you fight Zod.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Alright, now the outright negatives for me, the stuff that I could not stand for in this movie. Same thing as Justice League, and same problems. No chemistry, and, like, just no point to take up screen time, because it's just a waste, and stuff we can be focused on other stuff, is Iris West. I understand Iris West and Barry, they are, they're, as they say in the TV show, Iris is Barry's lightning rod, they inside the comic books, they are together. Like, they don't get divorced or anything like that. When Barry dies, Iris doesn't get remarried or anything. She's pretty much waiting for Barry to come back to life. And it's 30 years in real life. It's like he dies in Crisis in the 80s and doesn't come back until, what did I just read? Final Crisis? He comes back in Final Crisis? Like, that's what, yeah, he's there to help and stop with Doomsday. Not Doomsday, Darkseid and stuff. But it's a real-life 30-year gap. So even in the comic books, the writers don't have Iris and Barry separate or have Iris remarry or anything. Barry just dies. So this is one of those comic book relationships that, like, it's just meant to be. And so they try doing it in the movies. Iris is his girlfriend and wife inside the TV show as well. They're trying to do this inside the movies, and both times it was horrible. I hated the scene in Justice League when he saved her from the car accident, and I'm guessing like that was the last time he saw her. Is that what she was trying to imply? That was the last time they saw each other? And then after that, this scene of just those two, no chemistry. It's always like, you know, he's acting a little too goofy, she kind of quirky, she kind of sees it, but finds it a little bit endearing, and then is being, like, overly confident to, like, you know, be a counter and a contrast to his quirkiness, and none of it feels genuine, none of it feels real, and it's horrible, and I wish I don't want to see any more screen time on this, because you're wasting time, we could be developing on real stuff to do this. I mean, if Joss Whedon can take Iris out of Justice League, I'm pretty sure it's one of the only valid things to be able to take out, because I think it was just wasted. It was just no point to do this. Now, going on to my next big negative, and this is something that it's a huge positive and a huge negative rolled into one, which is how this film handles the theme of letting go. And within this, Barry, the whole plot of the film is that Barry has now gone back in time and stopped his mother from dying. If Barry stops his mom from dying, not only is mom, you know, still in his life, but his dad doesn't falsely go to jail for the murder that he didn't commit, because there's no evidence to prove that he didn't do it how the story goes out. So since Barry goes back in time and, you know, fixes everything, obviously it changes the future. It's a butterfly effect. And with this butterfly effect, it has now caused it to where Barry now needs to go back and fix everything before the world ends. This whole thing of letting go and, you know, needing to accept what has happened, this is something that the Prime Barry struggles and finally learns by the end of the film. Before the end of the film, he learns it, because now it is his turn to pass on this knowledge to the immature young Barry, the 18-year-old Barry, because at the end of the film, all the four main superheroes, both Flashes, Supergirl, and Batman, are all fighting Zod's army along with Earth. And during this battle, Batman and Supergirl keep dying. There's no way that they don't. Zod wins every single time. This isn't a Doctor Strange. We'll go through 14 million scenarios and we win one time. They don't. That Zod wins every time. They needed Superman. Superman's not coming. He's dead. So, what does Barry keep doing, though? Young Barry keeps going back in time and fixing and fixing and fixing it. And every single time he fixes it, something bad still happens, and he keeps going back and trying to stop it. Every single time this happens, he encounters a past version of Zod. He'll try to kill Zod. Zod will end up, like, stabbing him. And then more and more, you'll start seeing Barry start having Kryptonian armor and blades in his skin. It's almost like he's building up his own suit by it. And so, by the end of this is a great climax, by the way. I enjoy what's going on so far. Young Barry is not accepting the fact that he needs to let go. Like, this is something that's just going to happen. And so he keeps trying to change it. He's being immature, and we have the straight man Barry trying to teach him this lesson. Until the point where Prime Barry goes to stop it, and then we see that there's 3 Flashes now. We got the 18-year-old Barry, we got the Prime Barry, and then we have the Barry that's got all this Kryptonian armor inside of him. It's a fine concept, except that we've seen it before over and over again. Evil Barry is outdone, especially if you watch the TV show. And even this one, I thought, like, are we getting Savitar? And it basically was Savitar. Savitar in season 3 is an evil Barry that ends up having, like, a super suit of armor. This is the same one as this one. You got an evil Barry wearing a blue super suit of armor, and it's like the same spiky, like, Kryptonian-looking thing. Like, it looks exactly like Savitar from the TV show. And even then, Savitar is a copy of a Wally Westmoreland. Like, it's not even proper. You just didn't have to do this. You could have just had it to where, instead of having 3 Barrys, you got 2 versus 1 at the end. Don't do anything like that. Just go Prime Barry as, like, Prime Barry is talking to Young Barry. Young Barry keeps going back in time, messing stuff up. And once they realize that all the multiverses are colliding, collapsing in on each other, then Young Barry just has to accept it himself. Doesn't have to die, doesn't have to get stabbed by an evil version of himself, none of that. He just needs to realize that what he's doing is wrong, and he needs to realize this mistake earlier than the Prime Barry did. And that's what should have happened. I really like how they do this whole letting go and accepting storyline. I think it's done really well, except for this evil Barry at the end. What Quantumanium should have been with Ant-Man fighting for time and accepting Kane's help because Ant-Man feels guilty about not having time with his daughter, that was what this should have been. Same thing with Barry. Barry is choosing to make a selfish mistake and has to learn by the end of the movie to fix it. Ant-Man should have done the same thing. These are good storylines. This is a good way to do it. I just wish I didn't have to see evil Barry versus good Barry, because you could have just had a mature Barry versus immature Barry and have one of them realize the mistake that they're making. That would have been a lot more powerful, just because we don't need to see we don't need to see a world-ending bad guy. We already had the threat. It was Zod. We don't need to have evil Barry. It's not necessary. So, really big positive of how they're doing the theme of accepting. I just wish they would have executed the very end better. That's a very big negative for me, because you just don't need evil Barry. But overall, I found this movie to be quite enjoyable. I actually found this to be better than most recent Marvel outings, even No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, Quantumania, even Across the Spider-Verse. I thought that movie was a little incomplete, and the side characters, just like Batgirl and Superman, didn't have the greatest development. But I did find Barry very interesting here. The movie keeps it very lighthearted in some points while still knowing when to be dark, very dark in its nature. And Barry, Ezra Miller really cares just having to play both versions of himself. This film was entertaining enough to the point where I had 4 or 5 beers before, before the movie and during the movie. And man, I needed to piss like a banshee. And I waited all the way till the credits were done, where we just saw fucking Aquaman in a puddle, singing the Sailor song or whatever he was doing. I stayed all the way until that, just because I found this movie entertaining enough and I wanted to be able to see it all. I highly do recommend that, even though it was, bombing in the box office, I recommend you guys go see it in the theaters. It's something, it's not a bad movie in the slightest, and it's stuff like this where it's like, we would have had the Snyderverse originally if stuff like this could just go through. But it's like, this is the DCU and it is ending for a reason. I give this film a 7 out of 10. It's really fun. I would say it's good. It's a good movie. There's going to be some points that aren't going to be perfect, but there's not going to be anything that's going to make you hate it or even dislike it. I was even thinking about rewatching it literally yesterday on my day off of work. I wanted to go back and rewatch it just 3 days after I already saw it. And I don't have that for a lot of movies. So, a 7 out of 10, it was a really, really good watch for me. Had a lot of fun, and you know what? I won't be upset if the rest of the summer, the rest of the movies that I watch keep me this entertained. Well, if you guys like this video, I have more like it discussing other theater films that came out this year. Go ahead and check out on the channel. And plus, I have long form reviews if you guys care more for those. If I could ever beat the copyright system, I'll permanently have up in at least 2 weeks the American Beauty Part 2 video, as well as the first 2 Film for Thought reviews that I have with my co-host, FilmRook. Those videos consist of over hour-long reviews for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom. So stay in tune if you guys want to see those.